Okay, just one second, Caitlin, and then
Yeah,
I'll,
sure.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Sounds great.
Okay, I think we're good. Audience members, we deeply regret the technical difficulties. So I think we're squared away now, and we'll go forward with the presentation. I do have confirmation that you should be seeing the Spring Arbor University logo, which is exactly what we want you to see. So with that, I will now finally turn it over to Caitlin to get us rolling here. So thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I'm excited to be presenting the nurses edition of How to Make the Most of LinkedIn today. And before we get started, I wanted to emphasize that if you take nothing else away from this presentation, the #1 thing to remember is the importance of networking. So networks are what facilitate learning and collaboration, and most importantly, knowledge about opportunities that you wouldn't have found otherwise. And networks need to be nurtured. Which is what LinkedIn is great for. So LinkedIn's primary value is making the nurture part of networking easier by facilitating connections and communication. So before I tell you a little bit more about me, I first just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. I mean, you guys are on the front line of this pandemic, risking your personal safety, working tirelessly around the clock, and with school on top of that. So just major kudos to all of you. So anyway, obviously, if you chose nursing as your profession, you're passionate about helping people. And I just want to say that this is something I share with you. As Terry mentioned, my name is Caitlin. My day job here at LinkedIn is helping schools advertise on our platform in order to connect with prospective students. But my passion is networking and teaching others how to do so on LinkedIn. And also, just fun fact, I'm a diehard soccer player since I was a little kid, which this will make sense later. So as far as the agenda goes, this presentation is going to cover what differentiates LinkedIn, what actions you should take on the platform to make it work for you, with a focus on rocking your profile and network building, and then separately, what actions you should take once your profile already rocks. So let's dive in. In this first section, I'm going to cover LinkedIn in relation to other platforms, common misconceptions about LinkedIn, and what makes the tool so powerful. Like other social media, LinkedIn is about sharing content and socializing with your network. But the difference is in the why. So what do people use LinkedIn for primarily? Job search, personal branding. These are the things that most people know about for LinkedIn. But what, in my opinion, what it really boils down to is 3 things: staying in touch with your network, connecting with experts that have skills or knowledge that you don't, and getting referrals. Now getting into the meat of why I think LinkedIn is so powerful. So LinkedIn makes it easy to find the right people and the right information to help you make informed decisions. It really just kind of helps curate information and curate your network. So think of LinkedIn as your digital Rolodex. You know, the beauty of it is that you don't have to remember things off the top of your head. It knows when people in your network change jobs and provides a way for you to contact people that you don't have contact information for. So the problem that LinkedIn is really solving for is that networking doesn't have to feel like as much work as it used to be. Technology obviously helps with a lot of these things. So LinkedIn is also a database. You can find troves of nursing relevant information on any organization that might be hiring. I mean, these days I never go to an interview without looking up my interviewers on LinkedIn first, and browsing employee profiles just to get a better understanding of the organization. You know, and nursing specifically is already an emotionally taxing job. So I would argue that it's definitely worth it to do your homework to avoid, you know, a toxic culture that any organization could have. Or at the very least, you can look at people's profiles and get good tidbits for your cover letter. Lastly, LinkedIn is the right audience. And I emphasize the right audience because it really helps you cut through the noise. It's people that you choose to be connected with or not. And it's the right audience for professional advancement. You know, it's populated with people you know, or people that are connected to people you know, which we'll get into a little bit later with first and second degree connections. But also, importantly, our data shows that job applicants referred by an employee are 9 times more likely to get hired. And so I would also just say that a pro tip is that the people that benefit the most from LinkedIn have lots of connections, and they use our mobile app. And I think that having the mobile app is particularly relevant for this audience, given that nursing isn't exactly a sit at your computer all day job. So you're constantly on the go, and we all have our phones or devices with us, as much as possible. So I think that this is particularly relevant for this group. So these are the LinkedIn Mythbusters. So common misconceptions. Myth number one is that LinkedIn is just the same thing as an online resume. This is definitely very far from the truth. LinkedIn is really a way to bring your professional brand to life. You can use videos, photos, presentations. It's just like a richer media platform. But the idea is that you call attention to what makes you unique compared to people with your exact same role. And obviously a lot of folks in the nursing profession have similar titles. So it's a way to differentiate yourself from someone that has the same title as you. Plus you can include way more information in a LinkedIn profile than you could in a resume, given just like the length. So this is great for keyword searching. LinkedIn also is more interactive in that it helps you communicate directly with your network. And then I would just also say that it's generally more humanizing, obviously, since you can include rich media, pictures and stuff like that. Your headshot alone makes it more personalized than a piece of paper. And I'm not sure if folks on this call are familiar with Nurse Liz, but I watched a YouTube video of her recently, actually in preparing for this presentation. And she's hilarious, but also I feel like she's my kindred spirit, like the nurse version of me, of giving career advice and being super talkative. But everything she posts to YouTube is exactly what LinkedIn is designed for. Okay, so myth number two, I only need LinkedIn when I'm on the market for a new job. So one thing in the professional world is people often forget, because it's also not really a natural feeling thing, people forget that they should always be networking, not wait until they need a new job, especially if you want to land a job that you want rather than a job that you need. So simply put, job searching will almost always take longer if you're not networking in advance. Myth number three, networking is for extroverts. I am 110% extroverted, and I too have social anxiety at networking events of awkwardly walking up to a group of strangers with very little to talk about. So what makes networking easier? Research. I stalk the heck out of people by looking at their profiles. If I see that someone's going to be attending an event, I'll just look up something that I can maybe talk to them so that it feels like the introduction's a little bit warmer in real life. Or I'll come up with thoughtful questions to ask people ahead of time so that I'm not just stuck with, so what do you do for a living? Anyway, so we're obviously not really going to in-person events given the global pandemic right now. But this also calls attention to other things that LinkedIn is great for using with networking. Another stealth form of networking is just giving kudos to someone for great work. Again, our technology will let you know when people in your network are promoted. You can give them a like, or you can comment and say congratulations on the new job. Work anniversaries. It sort of just provides light touch ways of staying in touch with people. And one of the other big things that people overlook with networking is that offering to help others is also a stealth form of networking. We have this thing here at LinkedIn called the +1 pledge. And it's all about offering help to people outside of your network, because everyone can use help connecting. And just generally speaking, I would say, it's a great thing to do in general because it's nice, but it's also a guaranteed way, for anyone that you help in their time of need over the years will almost definitely return the favor if there becomes a time when you're in need. And not that that's the reason you should do it, but it's definitely a bonus. And so the last myth, number four, so nursing edition here, LinkedIn is for corporate office workers only. So LinkedIn is most definitely for anyone that can benefit from networking. And trust me, everyone can benefit from networking. I actually pulled a little quote here yesterday from our CEO, which is part of his, or our former CEO, I should say, part of his passion about being the leader of LinkedIn. He said, whether or not you're a CEO, you have a professional network with whom you want to interact, inform, and influence. Engaging more effectively on social media can give you an edge. And this is really true, obviously, as technology has evolved in the last 10 to 15 years and will continue to evolve. Also, nursing is a very much growing population on our platform. So I would say that LinkedIn is definitely a place for nurses. And employment is also growing faster than any other occupation based on our jobs data. Now more with the emphasis on preventative care, increasing rates of chronic conditions, and demand for healthcare services from the baby boomer population. So again, LinkedIn is definitely a place to be for nurses, given the demand in jobs in the area, and also you have other nurses on the platform that you could be networking with. Okay, so now that I've covered what's not true about LinkedIn, I want to cover the steps you can take to leverage the platform. But again, I want to be clear that this is different than the steps that you should take after you're all set up. So first and foremost, we'll start with what we call here at LinkedIn rocking your profile. And really what this just means is, the more complete your profile is, the more likely you are to show up in searches, and more importantly, accurate searches. So I'll start with a profile photo. Here is an example of a bad profile photo. And here is an example of a good profile photo. We don't have a lot of rules. It doesn't need to be a professional headshot if that's not you or you don't have access to that. So I'll just give some tips. I would say use a background that isn't distracting, have a picture just be you, and smile. We find that members with profiles get up to 21 times more views and 9 times more connection requests, and bonus points for using a background photo, which will come up in my next screenshot. So location is another important aspect of the profile because many recruiters search using a filter for location. And the quick thing here is just that if you don't have a location, you can't show up in searches where the recruiter does list a location. Next up is the headline. So for most professions, I advise people to use their headline as an opportunity to get creative. The default to autofill here is your current title. So for me, as Terry mentioned, I'm a senior project manager at LinkedIn. It autofilled to that, but I replaced it with professional connector, learnaholic, doer, passionate about social impact. So you really can get creative here if you want. That said, for nurses, given how indicative your title is of your scope of work, my recommendation would be to list your title in addition to your degrees. And so you guys have a lot of acronyms, RN, BSN, MSN, FNP, AGNP, use them. And for all of you, I guess, that are becoming nurse practitioners, your degree, may be implied, but in a profession where there are mandatory prerequisites, I do think it's important to be thorough and help recruiters cut through the noise. And also just so that you're not bombarded with irrelevant opportunities of things that you are either overqualified for or not qualified for yet. Next up is the summary section. This is the best place to communicate your professional brand, put your own spin on your experience. It should be a short paragraph covering who you are, what you do, why your work matters, and what your impact is. I shared these 2 examples here on the screen so you can see that it's totally customizable and should just really speak to you. It should be very personalized. I would use this section to brag a little. What makes you a good nurse? List your clinical experience, your procedures you're good at, scope of your practice. If you're particularly great with mental health or women's health, say it. Say things that aren't captured in your experience section. And yeah, speaking of experience section, this is where you should include all of your former roles, even if they're not nurse related. And I actually have a lot of nurse friends that started out in other professions and transitioned. It should definitely be very thorough. You never know what opportunities are going to come up or that pair really well with past experience. But yeah, name of the game here is be thorough, packing keywords that recruiters are searching for. And pro tip here, don't assume recruiters know the scope of your practice or that they assume that you have certain experiences based on your title. So, you include lots of, blood work, x-rays, scrubbing in, soap notes, data review, health assessment, care plan design, number of patients you see per hour. Things like that are all very important things. And just don't ever assume that recruiters know any of that based on your title or your degree. Better safe than sorry. And again, with a technology platform like this, when recruiters are using keywords to search for you, having those words in your profile is important to be found. And then just note on format, I would say recommended format is concise paragraphs summarizing your role, and then maybe some bullets of accomplishments and results. Your education section is also really important. This one is, I think, a no-brainer for nurses. I would say no-brainer for everyone, because I normally say including your education is a great way to connect with alumni, plus it's bragging rights. We don't pay a boatload in tuition to not share that we're educated. And those things are still very true for you, but for nurses, it literally changes what you're qualified to do, and recruiters need to know that and have it spelled out for them. Also, because the way that recruiters typically function is that they don't have time, so they need all of the relevant information at their fingertips. Okay, so skills. Skills are pretty self-explanatory, but one thing I do want to point out here is that soft skills count, and that this section also allows for collecting endorsements from your network. So someone can kind of +1 you if they agree that you have these skills. And it just indicates to people looking at your profile, if you have lots of endorsements, that it just brings a little bit more credibility to those skills rather than you just saying you have them, but also just increases your visibility. I would also say make sure you include certifications, any boards passed, stuff like that. So to close out the Rock Your Profile 101 section, from our perspective, or even recruiters' perspective that we've heard feedback for, is the biggest challenge with the nursing population on our platform is incomplete profiles. So this entire section is dedicated to giving you more details on making sure that your profile, not only the completeness is measured by completing all the sections, but also making sure it's really, really thorough. And anyway, if lots of nurses on the platform, frankly, if they don't have complete profiles, you can have a leg up on other people, on your competition potentially, if you do complete your profile. And then one other thing here I would say, and I think this can be true for anyone, but if you're not the type of social media user that visits social media often, and a better way to get in touch with you, let's say, is your email, I might even include your email address in your summary section and say, best way to contact me is this. That could help cut out the noise, because a recruiter would have to proactively want to get in touch with you. So maybe the opportunities that you're reached out to about is more relevant. And then also just, again, if you're not in the platform checking things, you're not going to see things. So if that truly is the best way to get in touch with you, then list that, or whatever the best way is to get in touch with you, you should list that in your summary section so that people can better reach you for the right opportunities. Okay, so now that your profile is complete, the next step is to build your network. Your network is bigger than you think: friends, family, classmates, alumni, colleagues, former colleagues. People often have this perception that networks should be limited to people they know professionally, but that's not true. My network is my friends from high school, college classmates, alumni, anyone I've ever worked with professionally. But the biggest diversity in my network is people I play soccer with and people I volunteer with. And so this is where my soccer fun fact comes into play here. But this is a picture of my soccer team, and as you can see, it's a very diverse set of professional backgrounds, and these people are all in my network. And more importantly, my network is also all of their networks. So digging a little bit deeper into building networks, research shows that your weak connections, so those originally in your second and third degree networks, and again, first degree network is someone you're connected with directly, someone you've asked to connect with on the platform. Second degree connection is anyone that is connected to those people. And then third degree connection, this gets a little bit confusing, is anyone who's connected to your second degree connections. So anyway, the research shows that these weak connections are often more valuable than strong existing connections, because their networks are more diverse than your own. So you're more likely to uncover opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise, and less homogenous. So, going back to my soccer picture, those are my friends. But as I mentioned, they have a lot of connections themselves that they might be able to introduce me to. And again, their networks are also probably diverse. So they might know people in my industry, even though they're not in my industry themselves. And I'm thinking many of you may have started already growing your network on LinkedIn, but for those of you who haven't, a good way to start is to import from your email contacts. And this just gives our platform a way to then figure out who else you might know from there. And literally there's a section I'm doing air quotes here, but people you might know section. So our technology helps figure this out once you give it a little bit of a boost so it can learn who you might know. And it'll suggest people based on connections of the people you know. It'll also suggest people based on where you work, past job experience, current job experience, where you went to school, et cetera. But then I would just strategically expand from there. So people you have something in common with, people you have job or work experience that interests you, people who might be able to connect you to someone or something to help achieve your goals. And for nurses specifically, connect with your preceptors. This could be a good place to start for references, especially if you're not comfortable asking your current manager if you're leaving an existing job. It's great to have this network, again, digital Rolodex that you don't have to keep in your brain available to you. So some advice on how to reach out to connections. So there's vague and specific. For some connections, you're very close friends and colleagues. I am all for just shooting. I find them on LinkedIn, hit the request connection button, shoot it off. That's great. But for anyone that wouldn't readily know exactly who you are and why you want to connect, I highly recommend being specific and personal. I get connection requests all the time from people I don't know, and the funny thing is that I would actually happily respond to people that I don't know if they ask me a question. But if they just shoot me a connection request, I have no idea how I can help them. And so it needs to be specific and personal to get people's attention. Say who you are, how you came across their profile, how they can help you. This is definitely going to get you more responses than just shooting off connection requests to people that say are just in your industry. Even if there's someone in your alumni network and you shoot them a request without saying anything, it's not really telling them how you can help and how are they adding value to your network? How can you add value to their network? It's unclear if you're not personal and specific. This is also a sneaky way to direct message someone. So once you're connected to someone on LinkedIn, you can send them a message like any other platform with unlimited characters. But if you're not connected to someone, you can't send them a direct message, or you have a certain number of free ones. And I'll give you some pro tips on sneaky ways to get around this later. But sending a connection request does have limited characters, but it is a way to be able to say a certain message if you do have a specific question for someone, and they don't even have to connect to you to answer it. So this is just one little loophole. Okay, so filling out your career interests and setting up job alerts. This section is often forgot about, but I urge people to remember to do it because it's a great way to let our technology do the searching for you. I would say, think of this how Netflix recommends content to you. Our platform can make job recommendations, or you can straight up say, this is exactly the title I'm looking for. I want to set up an alert so that I don't have to always come to the platform when something new comes up. Our technology will do that work for you. And then we have this feature, just like many other social media platforms, of following. So the follow feature is also pretty self-explanatory, but the tip I would say here is that the biggest takeaway is that your feed is populated based on your network and your interests. And the way we know about your interests is by you following organizations, people, and hashtags. So also, if you ever want to clean up your feed, if sending you a lot of articles or posts from people that you don't really know that well because you connected with them a million years ago and you don't want to unconnect with them, which you could, and they wouldn't know. But if you don't need their information, activity in your feed, then you can train your feed by clicking on any post in your feed will have these three little dots on the upper right corner. And then this improve your feed option will come up. You click on that and then you can tell it, I want to unfollow these people or proactively follow these hashtags. Hashtags are a great way to follow topics. And so anyway, I think you should follow companies that you're, any employment place of interest so you can stay up to date on their hiring or just news that you might want to mention in an interview. Follow the AANP publications like American Nurse. You know better than I based on your profession, but follow things that are relevant to you personally and to you for the industry. To close out the Make Our Platform Work for You section, I'm highlighting notifications because whether it takes an email notification or red dots all over your phone to get you to check your updates, LinkedIn cannot help you if you don't check it. And then other pro tips I would say, I don't go into detail here because there are a lot of privacy settings, but I definitely encourage people to take the time to just quickly look through the privacy settings, especially if it's something that's very important to you. Everyone has their own opinions on this, but there are a lot of things you can customize in privacy to make things not visible. So I would hate for someone to be afraid of social media because they are much more private. There is a very clear way to be private on LinkedIn if you so choose. And then there's also this customizable URL that you can make, which is, and this is also in the privacy settings. But I just like this one because it's a way to make a short URL that you can, put at the signature of your email or include it on your resume. And it's just a way for recruiters or anyone to be able to find out more about your career. Moving on. So now I've told you how to make your profile awesome. This is where I want to now focus on what you should do on the platform yourself proactively. This is what you should do regularly to maximize success. So again, now you have a flawless LinkedIn profile. Every section is filled out. You have lots of connections, dozens of skill endorsements. But remember, as I said in the beginning, networks need to be nurtured. So the biggest mistake I would say people make on LinkedIn, you meet someone in real life, connect with them on LinkedIn, and then a year later expect them to help you get a job when you suddenly find yourself in need of work. Doesn't work like that. So my advice would be to engage on the platform regularly, like things, share things, comment. We have an algorithm, and the more active you are, the more you're going to show up in your network's feeds and be top of mind. And remember, networking is also about helping other people. Sharing is the ultimate show of support. If you share someone's comment on LinkedIn, they will see that you've shared it, and that's basically a show of endorsement. So point being, stay active so your connections become accustomed to seeing you in their feed, always sharing new insights. And P.S., they'll see that you have a lot of knowledge and skills to offer beyond your job experiences. Another thing is you can participate in groups. I did a quick search, and there are a ton of nursing groups on LinkedIn. And bonus here, another pro tip, if you share a group with someone else, you can send them a direct message, even if you're not connected to them. So this is a way to, again, help facilitate connecting and communicating with people outside of your network. Another great way to be active is post offering advice to your network. I'm going to show you an example of this later when I hop over to screen share and do the demo section, but offering advice to others is a great way to grow your network. It's on your own terms. It feels good to help others. And again, undoubtedly, you'll be building allies. So again, this is the +1 pledge. So I say all this being active, it might sound like a lot of work. I know staying in touch with a large network can seem daunting. But the whole point of LinkedIn is to make it a little bit easier and so have it feel like less work. And I do think it's very achievable if you set realistic goals. So creating habits is, helps with achieving goals always. But, even if it's just log in once a week and do something, anything, share an article that you see because you're following an employer or a news item you see, just reshare it and maybe make a comment on it, like a few things. Mostly also just be responsive when other people reach out to you. The whole point of the tool is for networking, so if you ignore all of the outreach coming your way, you're probably not really pushing your network forward. And again, if there are mostly things coming to you that are irrelevant, then train your feed, disconnect with people that don't make sense to be in your network. Make it yours. Other ways you can be active is browsing job listings. Simply just type in some job titles and just kind of poke around, use it for inspiration. Even if you find job listings through other websites like Indeed or through your state nursing association or wherever, use Link to find others who work at that organization and ask for advice or information that might inform your decision to apply. And again, I'll go into this in the demo section of how you can find people at organizations, even if you found a job listing through a different site. Visiting the alumni page, and this is a community of arguably more willing to help you, and again, can help you brainstorm job searching, or even just you can stumble upon roles you didn't know existed by browsing alumni profiles. And this one you can do stealth. People don't necessarily know you're looking at their profiles. There's a setting for that as well in your privacy settings. But also, this is a great way to learn. Again, I said LinkedIn is a database. This is study LinkedIn profiles of nurse managers and nursing executives of note and how they present themselves. And only if this is the path of interest to you. But point is, there's a lot of information here that you can just research on your own. And then after finding all of these alumni, I would ask for informational interviews. Conversations like these can be a great resource to find out inside intel about employment opportunities. And frankly, also advisable to do these even when you're not proactively searching for a new role, because the power of your network is amplified both by its size and your engagement level with it. You can't ignore it. Another great activity to do on our platform is publishing. I'm going to gloss over this kind of quickly because publishing is most definitely secondary to all the other things I've talked about so far. So first, get your profile up to snuff, be active on the platform in light touch ways. But after that, publishing an article or sharing your opinions about healthcare policy or something like that can be a great way to demonstrate leadership. And just generally increase your visibility by showing up in your network's feeds. Again, the more active you are, the more our algorithm will push your activity into your network's feeds, so they know what you're up to, what you're thinking. And so again, I go back to the Nurse Liz example from the beginning of the presentation. Everything she puts on YouTube, she should absolutely put those things on LinkedIn. It's the perfect platform for that sort of thing, and especially because it's all content that's relevant for professional advancement. Okay, so now we're going to do the demo. So to close out the section, I'm going to leave you with this Finding Nemo quote: "Filters are friends." So let me quickly hop over to the screen share. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to give it a second because I don't know how long it takes to start sharing. Okay, so hopefully everyone now sees my general. I just went to linkedin.com. I'm signed in as myself. So this is the feed I was discussing earlier. I'm scrolling through it now. This feed is what I was saying is populated based on people you're connected to. So this gentleman is a first-degree connection of mine. So your first-degree connection, some of their activity will populate into the feed. Things from people in your second and third-degree network could filter into this feed if someone in your first-degree network interacts with that post. And then also this will be filled with advertisements. This person is having a work anniversary, so updates from people in your network, and also, again, anything you follow. So if you follow a company, like when I was looking for jobs at LinkedIn, I followed LinkedIn, so LinkedIn News would populate into my feed. So this is the feed. This is where I would say log in once a week, scroll through your feed, find something that interests you, comment on it, like it, share it. But when it comes to searching, so I did a little bit of quick homework in preparation for this presentation, and I went to the Spring Arbor University alumni page and filtered by nurses, and I found that one of the top employers for your alumni is Henry Ford Allegiance Health. Okay, so I found this. They have a company page. I use this just as an example. You can look up any company that has a LinkedIn page on our platform, but for sake of this example, I wanted to obviously use a health-related one. So now I'm on the Henry Ford Allegiance Health page. So this is great for interview research. So you can always expand, find more information in a digestible way about the companies. And then you'll see over on the right here, it says see all, almost 1,900 employees. So what I would do is click there. And let's just say, so I'm assuming in this instance, let's assume I found a job description online somewhere, either on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever, for a position open at Henry Ford Allegiance Health. So I'm like, okay, I'm interested in this position. Let me go find someone that works there that I know. So I would go to their company page, filter by employees, and now this is saying, okay, here's a list of their employees. I am not connected directly or even very indirectly to the CEO. So it just says LinkedIn member. This is a good example of privacy settings. So this person, the CEO, must have made his or her privacy settings to say, I only want people that are in my network to be able to see my name. So that is a good example of something that you could alter for. But anyway, here's the list of employees. I'm not super well connected in the health industry, which is probably why a lot of this just says LinkedIn member. Normally, when I'm looking in something more in my industry, it will just show me a list of names. But so the first thing I would do when I see this list of names, because 1,800 people is way too many to individually read through, I would go to the filters on the top right, and I would click on first degree connections and second degree connections. And I would hit apply. And that automatically gave me one result. There's only one person at Henry Ford Allegiance Health that I am remotely connected to. And so then it tells you underneath the person's name how you know them. So this guy, Matt Ronan, connects me to Iran. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but I could then ask Matt, hey, Matt, do you know Iran well? Like, if so, would you mind putting me in touch? I'm interested in a job at Henry Ford Allegiance Health, and I would love to just learn more about the organization. So this is how I would go about asking for an informational interview with someone. Ideally, you find something. If I was more connected in the healthcare industry, ideally I would have more of these options, and I could pick the right connection based on strength of relationship, based on relevance of job title for the person I want to connect with. But the idea is to try to connect with someone who is the most relevant job title to you, and you have the strongest connection to them. And in some cases, you type this in and you actually just know someone who works there that you didn't even realize, oh yeah, I went to, I studied with them in my undergrad, and I didn't even realize that they work here, but easy enough for me to just ping them either on LinkedIn's platform or off. So that would be my step one. Sometimes you go to an organization, this one, I only know one person. So I'm like, okay, let's say I don't know Matt well enough to ask him for an introduction, so this lead is not actually as good as I had hoped. So I would go back to filters, and I would take off first and second degree connections, which would bring me back to those 1,800 people. And I would maybe search by school. So let's see, Spring Arbor. Now let's do that. So I want to do, okay, great. So there are 116 people that work at Henry Ford Allegiance Health and have Spring Arbor University listed in their profile. So then again, I can just go through these, see if I know anyone. And in this case, you don't necessarily need to know them because you shared a school with them. So you could try contacting them directly, or you could try connecting with them and using the direct message feature that's in the connection request. And then some people on LinkedIn set their profiles to open messaging so some of these all say connect here, but sometimes it says message. And that either means that they've indicated to LinkedIn that they're okay to receive messages from anyone, or that you share a group with them. Another pro tip, like if you see someone who has the perfect job title, or they're like they make hiring decisions, but you don't have any connections to them, you could try to stalk their profile, see if they're in any groups, join that group if it's not private, just so that you can then direct message them with more of a targeted outreach, like a cover letter type outreach. Okay, so then let's use another scenario here. And again, this is all about how to use the filters. So let's say I don't have any first or second degree connections. I look through the alumni network and I'm not really seeing anything that would be that useful to me. The next thing I might do is, let's take alumni out. I might go to the filter section where you can search someone by first name, last name, title, company, school. So title, recruiter. Let's try that one. There you go. There are four people who work at Henry Ford Allegiance Health who have recruiter in their title. And here we go, nurse recruiter. So this might be a person. Oh, and here's a good example of message. So Jean Calvert, either we share a group or she's happy to accept messages from anyone. And by the way, a lot of recruiters leave this message open because part of your job is to be in contact with candidates. So you want to make it easy for them to get in touch with you. But so anyway, this is a good way to search by job title. And now I'm going to go back to regular going back to my main feed, and we'll start over because I want to show different ways to navigate our platform. So that one, we went in, we looked for a company where we knew we had a job opening and we wanted to find people at the company. Another way to search is to simply just go into our search bar and use a keyword to search for types of people with skills or for jobs. And so for this one, I'll just say I'll put in AGNP. So I'm just putting in that acronym, or you could spell it out and see, and we probably want to put it in quotes. But so now LinkedIn is telling me there are roughly 16,000 people with AGNP somewhere on their profile. It might be in their headline, which is what shows up here, or it might just be in the meat of their profile. And then I would go, I mean, again, 16,000 is way too many for me to search through individually, but then I would just, again, go to filters, first and second degree connections. So there are 68 people in my, Caitlin personal network. There are 68 people that I am second degree connected to, that have this nurse practitioner experience. So this is another way to just do informational interviews. Maybe I'm still in school and I just want to figure out work-life balance or different areas to find out about opportunities. You never know. Sometimes it's easier to get in touch with someone before a place is hiring so that you already have a connection by the time they are hiring. So this is a good use of the filters and just using search terms. So again, I'm going to go back to our homepage here and I just want to cover up a couple of things to close out the demo section. But we have a jobs tab up top. And if you go into jobs, this is where you can just search by title, skill, company, nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner, and see what it comes up with. And you can, so 140,000 jobs listed on our platform right now. And then you can use the filters by date posted, experience level. I would get creative with keywords here because experience level is typically mapped, I would say, to more of an office setting. So obviously in the nursing field, your scope of work is different based on level of education and experience. But you can also use filters to filter by a variety of things. So I would just look through these, figure out how you can find more information or limit it so that you're not obviously searching through 150,000 job results. So that's the job search page. And then I just wanted to quickly also show you how to find the alumni page. So Spring Arbor University, I see this down here. You would click on the school. And just like the company page I showed you earlier for Henry Ford Allegiance Health, Spring Arbor has its own page, which has information about the school. And then there's an alumni tab on the left that you would click that brings you to, and then it summarizes where people work, so where they live, where they work, what they do, what they studied. And then you can search with keywords here. So again, this is where I would go if you just want to browse through alumni profiles to see different career trajectories or see if there are connections at organizations that you're interested in. And then before I pop back over, I just wanted to show the +1 pledge. This is a post that I posted on LinkedIn, 4 months ago, or in May. So this is an example of me offering advice to my network. And so me personally, I work at LinkedIn. I enjoy career advice. So I listed in here that, I can help with your LinkedIn profile, working at LinkedIn. Obviously, if someone wanted to work at this company, I know a lot about it, and job searching. But everyone has skills in something. No doubt you can offer skills in something to your network. It doesn't even have to be nursing related, but you have skills, you can share, you can help people. This is an example, and I responded to anybody who reached out to me. They didn't have to be in my network, and I did some profile consultations. And then the important thing is that I challenged people in my network to do the same. So the idea is, try to help pay it forward, help people in your network. For sure, all of the people that I had consultations with, if I asked them for a favor, I bet they'd say yes. I don't need favors from them right now, and that's great, and I'm lucky. But if I did at some point, they're in my network now. So again, this is just a great way to I would say easier way of networking because it's on your own terms. But we obviously have our different comfort levels, so this is just an example. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. And we're back on our filters, our friends, okay? So the takeaways here are, again, in the beginning I said number one thing you take away is the importance of networking. But from the presentation itself is, complete your profile and grow your network. For nurses especially, use our mobile app because let's be honest, you're probably not checking it otherwise. Use LinkedIn on the regular. Share articles, give kudos, publish your own content if you're sophisticated. Use filters to find the right people and the right opportunities. And +1 pledge. Offer to help people that are not in your direct network. We can all use help connecting to great opportunities. And so that basically closes it out. I will say that on your screen there, you should have live links to some resources that are complementary to this presentation. And I believe they will be sent as a follow-up as well. But I'm going to pass it back over to Terry and Joe if there are any questions that came through the feed. And thank you all again for having me.
Thank you, Caitlin. So yeah, we will, this is the Q&A portion. There is a question that came into the chat. It's just, will a recording of this presentation be available after this training? The answer to that is yes. You will receive an email with a link to this recording. So you'll have all the great information that Caitlin shared with us today basically at your disposal and at your convenience. So no worries on that. And you should get that email shortly after we conclude our remarks today. If anyone else, does anybody else have any questions, anything on their mind, please feel free to type that into the chat. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that we got a comment that it was helpful. So that is really good to know that you folks are finding this valuable. I thought it was a lot of information to absorb, but again, having this link to refer to it will help you sort of digest it all and go back to it and get the most out of everything that Caitlin shared.
I'm also curious. It's funny. The recording question is always the first question. Mm-hmm. Without it is always the first question.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. I'll ask a question to the audience if people will respond in. But I'm curious if any of the myths that I debunked in the beginning were things you thought of from your perspective and based on your experience with LinkedIn. So I don't know if they can answer in the Q&A box mm-hmm. with an answer.
I'll keep an eye on that, Caitlin, to see if anybody, comments on that question.
Yep, for sure.
We did get a kind word that this, again, was helpful, and being able to refer back to it is going to be great. And just giving folks a chance to see if anything that Caitlin shared on those early the Mythbusters portion of the comments to see.
Well, I will give special shout out to one of those links in the resource box on the webinar platform. The Rock Your Profile video, I think it's about an hour, broken out into little modules of 3 to 5 minutes each. But it covers each section of the profile that I covered in way more detail. And it's actually, I would argue, a little bit more helpful if you're just getting started with your profile. So if everything I said felt a little bit overwhelming to you, that learning session is incredible. It actually shows you, like the demos that I just did for the filters, it shows you how to walk through each section of the profile and where to click, suggestions on things to include in those sections. And so I watched that video for myself, even to just be better at presenting for these types of webinars. So I highly recommend that video if you're just getting started with your profile.
Great.
And then using this to supplement, specifically for your profession.
Great. Thank you. We did get a couple more comments or questions into the chat. So the first one, just a kind of endorsement of how important it is for us to share this information, but I'll read the comment. It says, thank you for the information. I've been struggling with LinkedIn, but you provided valuable insights that I will be using to refine my profile. So right there, we know somebody acknowledging that, how to maximize the value of LinkedIn had been a struggle, and just being able to compile this information and share it as we have today is really great. So I'm glad that we were able to pull this together and you're able to fit today into your schedule and and then you did find some value out of it. Let's see. And then we did get another comment. It says, yes, I have never really understood it to be more than a resume out there in digital land. So that's, that's an interesting, and Caitlin, feel free, but yeah, it's saying like the perspective on LinkedIn is one thing, but I think you've exposed it to be a far greater, valuable tool.
Yes, definitely. I am so glad that that was enlightening, because a lot of people assume that they just think, let me set up my profile and then forget about it, set it and forget it. And by the way, LinkedIn is still valuable for that, because as long as you set it up, recruiters can at least find you. So as long as you check it once in a while, you can, uncover opportunities. But the real value is in what you do with the tool. One of the other myths that I didn't cover here, because it just didn't feel relevant, but LinkedIn Premium is the product where you can pay a monthly subscription to have more, like better access to things, like more search functionality and stuff like that. And one of the myths I cover for presenting with that is I say, the myth is that if I pay for LinkedIn Premium, all the jobs are going to find me. And like, that's just not how life works. So like, sure, you can get the premium platform, but really what it does is just amplifies the ability for you to find people. It's not going to make, unless you have actually for nurse practitioners, it's a very high demand job. So you probably will be found just by being on the platform. But unless you have the type of job that is highly, highly sought out, like software engineer or nurse practitioner, the platform is not just by being on it isn't going to make people find you. You need to do things to become more visible. But again, hopefully I'm showing ways, like I gave you many, many options. You don't have to take advantage of all of them. I mostly just wanted to show a menu of what's possible so that you can hone in on the things that feel comfortable to you that will still help you advance your own personal development.
Terrific. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments coming into the chat. So, and we're just about the top of the hour. So, hey, Caitlin, thank you so much for all that useful information. For those of you in the audience, as many of you have already said, we hope you found today's session to be both informative and very, very valuable as you think about your own personal career story. As I mentioned, you will receive an email with a link to today's webinar that you can refer to at your convenience, which I believe will be helpful. And if you do have further questions after we finish up today, if you do have further questions, on what any of this means, for you as a student, you can certainly reach out to your student success advisor. You can reach out to Joe Morgan, who's perhaps some of you know, and get that question answered. And just as I was saying that, we did get another thing into the chat here. I'll just read it for folks. Not a question, but another reason to love LinkedIn. I just recently discovered helpful webinars offered through LinkedIn, which is a creative way to network and to meet others with similar interests. So that's really interesting, application of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Terry and Caitlin, for all of your help with everything going on. Obviously, hopefully this will help the nurses boost their profiles to catch someone's attention. So I appreciate, Caitlin, all your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
And again, the thing with nurses we find is just make your profile very accurate. Otherwise, I've heard from nurses that they get a lot of outreach on LinkedIn, but sometimes not for opportunities that are a fit for them. And so a way to help for that is to make sure your profile is thorough and accurate.
Great, great. Well, folks, on behalf of Spring Arbor University and LinkedIn, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for rolling with us at the beginning with our little bit of snafu, but you're a friendly audience and we so much appreciate that. And with that, that concludes today's webinar, and thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.